Is Washington, D.C. tourism back? What are the crowds like right now? What do you need tickets for? And what fun stuff is happening this summer? I've got answers to all these questions and more in this video. But before we get into it, hello, my name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and the founder of Trip Hacks DC Tours. On this channel, I share my best tips, tricks, and hacks for visitors who want to explore Washington, D.C. And I recently started using a new YouTube feature that lets me respond to comments with YouTube Shorts. So if you have a question about an upcoming trip, leave it as a comment on this video or any video. And if I haven't answered your question yet, then I'll add it to my queue for this summer. If you want to see all of my existing Q&A short videos, I have them organized in a YouTube playlist, which you can find down in the description. Now, let's tackle the big question. Is Washington, D.C. tourism back? The answer to this is yes, absolutely. This is basically the first full year since COVID that every Washington, D.C. tourist site is back open at full hours and full capacity, with a few caveats that I'll cover shortly. The two busiest seasons in Washington, D.C. for tourism are spring break and summer break. And this year, spring break was record-breaking. As a tour guide, I can tell you that the crowds we had this year during spring break, particularly during peak cherry blossom bloom, were some of the heaviest that I have personally ever seen. March and April were both record-breaking for Trip Hacks DC Tours. If summer break is anything like spring break, and I expect that it will be, then we're going to have big crowds again in the coming months. Love 'em or hate 'em, 8th grade field trips are back. After a few years of relative calm, field trip season is back with a vengeance. I expect that these groups will be here basically through the 4th of July, take a short break at the end of the summer, and then return again at the beginning of the school year. And if you haven't seen it yet, I just published an entire guide on how to navigate around these field trip groups when you visit. The most important thing that all of this means for you, the traveler, is that you need to plan ahead and get tickets and reservations in advance when they're required. If you're watching this in May, hopefully you still have enough time to get this done. If you're watching this after May, hurry up because things are going to start booking up and selling out. Right now, a bunch of tourist sites still require free or nearly free timed tickets. The big ones include the Air and Space Museum, African American History and Culture Museum, Washington Monument, Library of Congress, Capitol Visitor Center, and the National Zoo. My general advice is, wherever you want to go, check the official website in advance to find out whether you need a timed ticket, a reservation, or whether it's open admission. Even if you came to DC before and remember going places that didn't require tickets, things have changed since the pandemic, so it's always worth double and triple checking. Trip Hacks DC Tours are now open for booking through the end of August. Both private tours with me and the Monumental Trivia Tour with Christine. If you're interested in either of these, don't wait too long to book because these did sell out this year during spring break. Now, if you're going to be here this June, July, or August, I just published a brand new podcast episode about things to do during the summer, including concerts, parades, festivals, sports, and other summer fun. Check out the video description for a link if you want to listen. Let me give you a few quick highlights though. Jazz in the Garden is back at the National Gallery of Art Sculpture Garden on Friday evenings. This is an extremely popular summer thing to do, and this year they're using a lottery system to distribute free tickets. So make sure you enter that lottery if you want to go. C&O Canal Tours in Georgetown are back for the season. So if you're planning to head over to Georgetown for a tour or some shopping, go ahead and check these out too. Phase 2 of the Wharf is now officially open, and many of the businesses in Phase 2 are slowly but surely opening. The Wharf is still one of my top recommended areas to stay, and always has a lot of fun stuff going on in the summer. And if you're going to be in town for the 4th of July, I have a ton of resources to help you out, including my roundup video of the best spots to sit and watch the fireworks, a deep dive podcast episode on everything you need to know if you're visiting for the holiday. And I'm planning a 2023 4th of July update video coming out next month, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss that. Now, let's cover some important Metro updates. The biggest one is that after many months, the Yellow Line is now reopened. What this means is that if you're flying in through Reagan National Airport or plan to stay at a hotel in Crystal City or Alexandria, you will have a much quicker and easier ride into town. A brand new Metro station in Alexandria called Potomac Yard is opening on May 19th. There aren't really any major tourist sites in the area directly around this new station, but it will be interesting to see how it develops in the future. You may have heard that the Silver Line extension opened last November, and you can now use Metro to ride to and from Dulles Airport. However, an important update is that this summer, between June 3rd and June 25th, a section of the Orange and Silver Lines will be closed for construction. During these dates, if you want to get in from Dulles Airport, you'll have to take a shuttle bus from the airport to the nearest Metro station and then Metro the rest of the way. So unfortunately, that's a lot less convenient. But the good news is that this construction is only scheduled to last for a few weeks. And finally, while this probably doesn't matter to most tourists and visitors, Metro has a new general manager, Randy Clark, who, in my opinion, has really been doing a pretty great job since he started. Metro had some kind of dark days during COVID, when there weren't very many trains running, you sometimes had to wait a really long time to get anywhere, and that's finally improving, and service is slowly but surely coming back to pre-pandemic levels. Now, let's run through some Smithsonian and other museum updates. First is that the Smithsonian Castle closed in February for a multi-year renovation. The castle isn't typically a place that I recommend people prioritize, but wanted to give you a heads up in case it was on your radar. There are a few cool new Smithsonian exhibits that have recently opened. Entertainment Nation at the American History Museum is one of the largest collections in the world of artifacts from film, television, theater, music, and sports. It's also one of the largest bilingual exhibits in the world, presented in both English and Spanish. A similar new exhibit next door at the African American History and Culture Museum is called Afrofuturism. According to Smithsonian, Afrofuturism expresses notions of Black identity, agency, and freedom through art, creative works, and activism that envision liberated futures for Black life. I've heard really positive reviews of this one, and personally hope to check it out very soon. If you haven't seen it yet, One with Eternity by Yayoi Kusama has been extended to July 16th at the Hirshhorn Museum. It was originally scheduled to close this spring, but it's very popular and they extended it to mid-July. This exhibit does require a free timed ticket, which you can get 1 day in advance on the Hirshhorn website. Coming soon to the National Building Museum is a new exhibit that will feature cities around the world recreated with Legos. If you're a fan of architecture or Legos, this is definitely one to keep an eye on. Up at the National Zoo, a pair of Andean bear cubs was recently born. They're now out for the public to see, and yes, are extremely cute. The birdhouse also recently opened after a multi-year renovation, and is really nice and worth checking out if you go up to the zoo. And of course, the National Zoo is still one of only 3 zoos in the United States with giant pandas. and the only one of those 3 that is also completely free. One last museum update is that the Folger Shakespeare Library is scheduled to reopen this November after a big renovation. This is one of the largest collections of Shakespeare in the entire world, and the renderings of the renovation look pretty amazing. So I can't wait to check that out. Now let's run through some food and restaurant updates. Perhaps unsurprisingly, there have been a lot of restaurant changes since COVID. Unfortunately, some places have closed, while others have opened. I would be careful taking any kind of restaurant recommendations, and that includes for me, that are more than a few years old, as a lot of information is now old and kind of stale. After a multi-year hiatus, Washingtonian Magazine has published their 100 Very Best Restaurants issue, which is a great resource that I personally use, even if it is admittedly a little overwhelming. Food halls are one of the hottest trends in 2023. Western Market on Pennsylvania Avenue near Foggy Bottom has many local favorites, all under one roof, including Roaming Rooster, Mason's Lobsters, and Falafel Inc. Opening in June is a new spot downtown called The Square, which is described as a chef-driven food hall. My hunch is that this one is going to be fairly high-end, so I wouldn't go expecting cheap eats, but it could be a cool experience nonetheless. Another highly anticipated food hall that just opened is called Love Makoto. It's an entirely Japanese food hall that's described as a culinary love letter from its chef. Right now, the sushi restaurant, Japanese steakhouse, and cocktail bar are open. But over the summer, they'll add street and shop style food like ramen, udon, and pastries. I recently went and did the sushi tasting, and it was awesome. But it was kind of expensive, so if you're looking for more inexpensive places to eat, I still stand by all the spots I mentioned in my most recent Cheap Eats video. So go ahead and click or tap right over here to watch that next. Enjoy your trip.